Friends, welcome to yet another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. Hopefully everybody's having a good day, a good week, a good weekend if you're watching this right on the weekend when these usually come out. Serge, what's going on?
Dude, not bad. Just celebrated a little birthday.
Come on, let's go.
It was fun. Went out into the woods.
Nice.
Listened to some good music. Hung out for a little festy for 3 days. 3 days? Yeah, Friday, Saturday. Came back on Sunday. A jolly good time.
That's lovely.
Loved it. Brewed a lot of coffee for people.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, basically, brewed a lot.
Out in the wild?
Out in the wild, dude.
How were you heating your water?
Dude, heat on a camp stove, my guy.
Really?
I think it was a Coleman. Must have been a Coleman, dude. A good old stove.
Good old Coleman.
And I had the jet boil too. So we were pumping out, I think Maddie and I brought 7 pounds of coffee.
Wow.
Did a custom blend for the festival. It was a good time. And then we also brought 11 gallons of water and 11 gallons of water. I think 7 gallons of that water too was all coffee water, perfect coffee water.
Nice.
So that a lot. It was super sick. It was super fun to also brew coffee for people, and people loved it. It was a good time.
It's great.
Yeah.
Man, how cool would it be to land to do a sick collab with Coleman? Who needs Carhartt?
Yeah.
Who needs
No,
I
would always change Carhartt for Coleman, dude. Carhartt is
but Coleman is just so iconic. It's such a
choose Coleman over Stanley?
It's just Coleman's just iconic.
No.
It's just doing it for the nostalgia factor.
Dude,
It's hard. Coleman. It's just it's classic. It's
Coleman.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
That's the reason why I'm no, dude. It would have to be I am Stanley. Maybe I would consider it. Yeti, I'd be sold.
Did you see the Carhartt Rocket collab?
No.
Rocket Espresso.
No, Sinesso did a Carhartt collab, I think too.
No.
No?
It was Rocket and Carhartt did a collab.
That's sick. I would be down.
And it was the most random collab ever, but it looked kind of cool.
I bet. Dude, there's a lot of high-end brands collab. Did you see the cafe that Kith started?
Yeah, I did.
Kith Cafe, Lacoste Cafe. Yeah. There's a lot of these big brands that are just dropping cafes. So what? That's pretty wild.
I have nothing else to do.
Dude, no other way to waste money than start a cafe.
That's facts,
dude. When you're such a big brand, you're
That's
dude, I need to move and wash this cash, brother. Start a cafe. It's cafes are turning into car washes. You got to move money. Start a car wash. Breaking Bad style. It tastes super weak. Tastes like muddy water to me. With some flavor. I should have went finer on the grind size. What did the bed look like when you pulled it out? I have not brewed this coffee on batch before, so.
Yeah. It's also piping hot. Just way too hot. I think
still has flavor. It's just weak.
Yeah, I think it's a combination because I added just a little more water than usual, but it shouldn't be that much. No. Actually, it ended up being probably a 1:17.
That makes sense. What do we normally do? 1:16.
Yeah. So this is a 1:17, but maybe it's a 1:17 plus having a slightly coarser.
Yeah.
Slightly coarser grind size, which was maybe a bad combo of the two.
What are the grind size? What did the bed look like when you pulled it out?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it still.
I'm gonna take a peek. Hold on. Just talk to people.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just it looks like the bed, the water level just rose maybe about half a inch above the actual bed.
A 1:17 is not good.
No, this coffee definitely needs a little finer.
A little finer, and definitely a 1:16, no more. So
that tastes much better. You're right. It was piping hot. Now it's cooling down a little. I'm not mad.
telling you, it's gonna. Yeah, I don't know. I just have this theory. Batch drip coffee, like right off the press, usually not very tasty, but it needs to cool down. It kind of, I don't know.
Dude.
It's a little more enjoyable, flavorful.
Dude, speaking of that, dude, what's your thought on like shot in darks? Would you ever get one?
I'm gonna come in next time to the shop and straight up order a geisha shot of espresso into a nice,
all right,
very developed drip coffee. Say, I want the geisha in the drip.
I probably deny you service.
That's terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible.
No.
My $15 black coffee is actually a $10 shot of geisha and a full $5 batchy.
No, dude, someone ordered an ice cortado with with a geisha today.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Ice cortado, dude. It has like a 3/4 pump of simple milk shaken over ice into a geisha. Yeah.
A simple syrup?
Yeah, 3/4 pump. Not a full blown like top to bottom pump, but 3/4 pump.
I mean, that sounds fun, I guess. No, listen, I bet no, it's fun. I just don't know why you'd put a geisha in there. Like, it's probably just more expensive.
It was someone from out of town trying out cafes in Bellingham.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was like, sick, dude.
But it's
Sig Bev with wild espresso. Sick, dude.
That's fun. Wow.
But yeah.
Do they like it?
They loved it.
Get some customer satisfaction right there.
High level customer satisfaction.
What do you think, like, if they absolutely hated the beverage, should they come back to you and be like, yo, this sucks?
Dude. You know, there's... To a degree, like, I guess it depends on who you are. Like, if a random, like, Joe Schmo comes up to me and is like, dude, your shot is not dialed, I don't ignore that feedback. I'm like, dude, I'm not saying, like, they're wrong about that feedback. I'm more or less saying, what do you mean by the shot is out of dial? Right? That's kind of how I'd receive that. Like, I think if anyone wants to complain or be like, they don't like something, I'm always intrigued by the feedback. I don't actually take the feedback as like truth. You know? I mean, have you had the mochas at Narrative? You need to have a mocha next time you come back.
I'm cutting. Listen.
You're cutting carbs.
I'm
okay,
cutting carbs. Yeah, I'm cutting carbs. That's why I don't drink mochas, you guys. There's an excessive amount of carbs in mochas, if you didn't know. So, if you're trying to cut down on carbs and trying to increase your sugar intake,
well, that's the point. They have zero. That's what I was going to follow up with. It's a ritual chocolate bar just melted into a sauce with water. There's zero sugar in it. There's no way there's zero sugar. Unless the chocolate itself has sugar in it, like the 70% dark chocolate from Ritual.
It doesn't have any sugar in there?
We don't add any sugar in it. None.
Okay, what about the chocolate itself?
It's not a Hershey's chocolate bar. It's basically, it's not Baker's chocolate either.
This isn't what this episode is supposed to be about, okay. but there's zero, like, it doesn't taste sweet.
It tastes bittersweet. That's what I'm saying. Come by and have a mocha.
What's this, like, bittersweet? No, dude.
Come back and have a mocha.
Bittersweet are opposites.
No, like, have you ever had a bittersweet moment?
Yeah. It means you're feeling two completely opposite things.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, seriously, you guys. It doesn't have any sugar in there.
No added sugar. We don't add any sugar into the chocolate.
But
sauce.
The chocolate, does it have any sugar in it?
I mean, everything has natural sugar, dude. Everything, dude.
Zero added,
dude.
Are you serious?
I'm like fairly serious. I need to double check my sources, okay. But that chocolate is 60 or 70% dark chocolate.
For those, Sergio will fact check himself.
I'll bring chocolate bar on the podcast next time.
I just, it's hard to believe that there's zero sugar in there.
It definitely has natural sugar. I'm not going to deny the fact that chocolate, it has natural sugar in it. Regardless.
Well, I'm okay with, to a certain extent.
Right.
It can't be, yeah. Anyways, for those who have not heard, I mentioned this a few, on the podcast already, but I'm trying to cut sugars. I'm trying to cut out eating sweet stuff and drinking sweet stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the background right here. I would come in and actually order a mocha.
You should.
I would.
You should.
If there's it's the sweetness, the sugars that I'm not really interested in.
The reason I bring that up is because, most of the time when people order a mocha, I would say like 50% of the time, the feedback you get and what people say is like, can you make it less sweet?
Yeah.
Rarely do I hear people say, can you make it extra sweet?
Yeah.
It's usually less sweet. So the problem that I face usually is it's not sweet enough. So I say, usually like, have you had our mochas? No. So I make the mocha as is, and people are like, yo, this has like no sugar at all. So the feedback is like, it's not sweet enough. There's no added sugar. It doesn't have that sugary flavor, because sometimes even when people ask for less sweet, they're most of the time compare it to Starbucks, which has so many pumps of sugar in it, right?
Right.
And their chocolate sauce is sweet with added sugar. So this is like such a shocker, because you can actually taste like the realness of the espresso and the realness of the chocolate, and it's a tasty combo. I think our mochas are solid. They're great. They're not what you expect, but the feedback a lot of the times that I get is like, oh, this wasn't sweet enough. So sometimes it's like, okay, well, we kind of talked about this. In that case, what I would do is I'd possibly remake it or add some pumps of sugar in it, right? In that context, for sure. Now, going back to the reason I bring that up is going back to your initial comment about it. I was like, if someone comes in and says my espresso's out of dial, that's when I'm like, okay, that's a bigger conversation than just like my mocha's not sweet. So different feedback will create a different response when I'm in the cafe, Yeah, same thing online, right? When you post something, you see a response of people, you're like, that's weird. And then you post another thing and you're shocked that you got like 20,000 views on a reel, and you're like, why? So it's like stuff like that. It's like everything, like, I think merits a response. It's just, it's not always the same response.
Yeah. I think also going back to, I don't know, something you said sparked this thought and idea, is that I think if you've been, I think if you've been around the coffee industry for long enough and you're an experienced enough barista, and of course, this is a very blanket statement, so there's probably some exceptions here. But if you've been around the coffee industry for long enough, if you're an experienced enough barista or a coffee professional, I think you should not. I think there comes a point when you stop getting offended by feedback about your coffee.
For sure. Because
at some point, like if you're getting frustrated and mad that somebody said your shot's out of dial, or that your coffee's not tasting good, or it's too bright, or it's too sour, listen, you're like, that's just screaming like amateur.
Right.
Because you have to realize is that there's subjectivity in here. And realizing that you're also people, especially people in our, like in like the lighter roast specialty coffee community niche part of the industry, I think at some point you have to get used to the fact that you're serving a beverage that is not ordinary.
Right.
It is actually comes with a lot of nuance and baggage and intrigue. It's like, I mean, if you're gonna, I don't know, like if you're gonna try something very, very different out of left field, you can't be upset that not everybody likes it if you're trying something straight out of left field. And I think for a long time, I mean, specialty coffee, light roast was that way, where it's like, you have to be extra careful in how you prepare it. You have to be a little bit more intentional, but also being very open to the fact that somebody's going to say, hey, this coffee's just not good. Like we had, back when I used to work behind bar, we had a Kenyan coffee that now I look back was probably a hair underdeveloped. But it was a Kenyan coffee that we had on batch brew that we kind of struggled for some time to move. because it just had a very, very unique, different flavor profile. And it was like a Kenyan, a Kenyan in all the best and glorious ways.
Kenyan as in the currant or tomato?
We're talking about both. It's a dangerous combo right there. Right? Not for the weak of heart. And so, I remember serving a beverage and somebody tried to it was a batch brew of a Kenyan, and somebody said, oh man, I poured milk into it and the milk curdled and I don't really like it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can't get offended by that.
Yeah.
There's no way I should be getting offended by that when the facts are the facts.
Yeah.
I would drink a Kenyan coffee that's very lightly roasted with milk in there. I just wouldn't. Yeah. And same with I remember when we put through an Ethiopia natural, the Masha, it was just a blueberry bomb, the most classic Ethiopia natural. It was insane. But when you throw it in the cappuccino for, a regular, and the regular's like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Yeah.
And when you ask them, they're like, yeah, I don't know what you think of this. I don't know if I like it or don't. Yeah. That should not be taking you by surprise. Then that's what I'm,
Remember the Guatemala Ayarza natural?
Yes.
Yeah. Remember how one time I served it on nitro cold brew? Yes. And someone was like, this tastes like a sparkling wine. I really don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which to me, I'd be like, dude, heck yeah. I hope. I mean, that's insane. Yeah. But you just can't be taken back by that. And if you're a customer and you walked in, you're a guest and you walked in and you had an experience like that. I mean, tell me first off, giving feedback is great because the cafe can't get better at what they do, especially if you're a regular and you're coming there often. Yeah. The cafe can't get better at serving you if you don't actually say hey, this is an uncomfortable situation, or this is not something I really enjoy. The baristas need that feedback, the owner needs that feedback. But I'm curious, do you think that guests should be giving feedback, and if so, what's a good proper way to do that, and when or how?
I don't want to give any input to guests on what they can or cannot do. And there are boundaries to that. But what I can do is I can approach it from a very personal perspective and more of a coffee professional perspective.
Right.
As a coffee professional, my job is just to not get offended.
Right.
Don't take it personally. Whatever. A lot of the times, if someone gives feedback about my quote unquote dial for the day, I'm not offended at the feedback, and I'm also not doubting my dial. The way I'm taking that is I'm saying, I probably made a mistake somewhere in between. So can I pull you another shot? You know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, oh, what should the dial be? That barista does not, or that, usually it is another barista that's saying that. But that person, the guest on the other side, usually has no idea the equipment I'm using, no idea about anything on that bar. They're basically judging maybe about their shot that they pulled at home on a Breville, or comparing it to. Yeah. That's it. Now if some feedback Anthony, our buddy Anthony, would give us, he's not a barista, but he's a coffee enthusiast.
Right.
And he said, dude, this just does not taste like it always does here. Then again, I'm not doubting my dial. I'm not doubting my recipe. I'm doubting what happened in between. Did I accidentally bonk the portafilter? Did I miss a pulse?
Right.
What did I do in the brewing preparation that did not taste to what I tasted in the morning when I dialed coffee in, or in the afternoon? So what I'm doing there is I'm literally not being offended by that feedback. It's more or less a QC method for me. Now, the different story is if every other guest is like, dude, this coffee tastes bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or so over the course of time.
Why do you think there's a difference between?
I think there's a pattern. There's a pattern created there where you're like, okay, maybe you're having a palate off day. Again, where can I take responsibility in this and be like, maybe the coffee is dialed, but maybe this roaster or this roast of the coffee is not exactly what the person expects from this coffee, or the people expect from their daily coffee, like you were saying. If someone's used to adding cream to their batch brew, and all of a sudden they add cream to this Kenyan coffee, they could care less about what's in the batch. Guatemala, Kenya, or Ethiopia, they add cream to their coffee, and all of a sudden the normal procedure routine of their day of adding cream into their coffee or getting coffee with cream from a cafe is spoiled because the milk is curdled. That's not your fault. It's not their fault. It's probably not the best coffee to serve. Mm-hmm. At that point, having more options on your menu is like key to mitigate that.
Yeah.
But if you find a pattern where every single time you serve this Kenyan coffee and people have that response, maybe you should consider not serving that Kenyan coffee
For sure.
fixing something in another area like the roast or something like that. Does that make sense?
Of course. I think the other thing that came to mind is realizing that there's like, oh boy, it's not just maybe that you're having an off palate day, and it's not maybe that your dial may have been wrong. Like in the case, if you're listening, you're like, man, you know your dial was spot on. You're confident in what you're tasting. Your dial, like your puck prep, everything was perfect. Mm-hmm. And then they're still saying that. And it could be because their palate is just very different. Like there is an option, but there's also maybe like a 5% chance that you could mitigate all of that before they even order the beverage by just being able to vocalize and explain, describe the coffee that you're serving. Yeah. Like disappointment just happens when you have an expectation that isn't met.
Yeah.
Like if you said, guys, this is the worst cup of coffee you're ever going to drink in your life, and you gave it to somebody and it was actually like a really solid coffee, because you just set such a bad expectation, they're really going to enjoy it. Yeah. But if you just said like, this is a phenomenal cup of coffee, and you gave them the same beverage and you overhyped it, there might be a greater chance that it might be there might be a greater chance that they might be disappointed. And so being able to just present them and say, hey, this coffee is very citrus forward.
Yeah.
This coffee may not work great with milk. If the person is saying, hey, can you leave some room for cream? Then if you have 2 batch brew options and one's a little funkier and one's, you should already be doing that work on its own. Or if somebody really pushes you and says, hey, you want to add milk into this Ethiopian natural batch brewer, it's okay to be like, I wouldn't like, hey, it's very fruity and it may not taste quite like you're used to. Like just adding that 2 cents in just so they know. Yeah. Because if you tell them and they're disappointed, that already means that you did your side of the thing. To warn them, to share with them, give them the right information to be able to make the right decision. And if they still want to, then it's just on them, because you went out of your way to describe that for them. And I think that's something that, I mean, is also something you could be thinking about before the beverage even gets handed off.
Yeah. Everything you're saying is basically describing the idea of setting the table or setting the expectation up. And I think a lot of the times, yes, it has to do with sharing about what you know about the coffee. But I would say before you even start to share, it's all about listening to what the person wants out of the coffee. The feedback and the criticism that most baristas get behind bar are from first-time visitors. So there's a few things that go in hand. If, as someone working behind host or behind a POS system, your job, if it's not someone you've seen before, your job is to be able to ask questions and have intrigue about who this person is. And most of the time you can pick up the body language. Someone walks into the cafe, gets behind, and they're like scanning the menu. They don't know what to even look at. And what I think the best version of hospitality in that point is to help them direct their eyes through the menu before they even look at the coffees. And then, like you're saying, when they get to the coffees, you explain the model of service that you're providing, right? If you have a blend on bar, say, hey, this blend just goes with a classic. If you love a deep, and use their language, gauge the language that people understand. Gauge that language. You can describe the same coffee multiple levels, and you can say, this coffee has just deep flavor. Don't even say deep sweetness, because that can be misconstrued. This coffee has like a deep flavor. It's so warm. It's so comforting. It goes great with milk in like a 12-ounce beverage. You don't have to say the coffee tastes like plum, like chocolate. Gauge
100%.
the person. Gauging that person requires a lot of just intelligence, a lot of bar intelligence to be able to read the room, read the person, give them the feedback. But then asking them I do this a lot when I see people scanning coffee beans. Mm-hmm. They're looking, they don't know, like today someone asked, hey, is that actually coffee? Because it was Valor in a box. And they're like, is that actually coffee? I'm like, yeah, that's killer coffee. You should buy that coffee for sure. And then I follow up with, how do you brew coffee at home? Mm-hmm. Because when I say you should buy that killer coffee, we're roasters. We own a roasting company. When I say you should buy that killer coffee, how do I know that they should or should not?
Right, yeah.
Am I simply pushing something because I need to sell it? Or am I intriguing about why? Mm-hmm. What coffee do they want? If you take that process, it eliminates a lot of the negative feedback and criticism. Now, the other thing that I would play devil's advocate about is if you have to raise the expectation or lower the expectation so low so that the person gets satisfied, if you have to do that, then my critique and criticism to that would be how much trust have you built with that person? Mm-hmm. Because if you have built repertoire and trust with that person by intriguing, by investigating, by engaging your consumer, then you don't have to raise the expectation and you don't have to lower the expectation.
Right, 100%.
Because the expectation is not set technically by you. It's set by the intrigue and the connection you've had with the guest.
Yeah.
And that's where that expectation is built. So I would say is intrigue, ask, and then set the bar where it should be for that guest.
Yeah.
After that, if you get feedback or criticism, then check yourself. You're good.
Yeah. 100%. And a lot of these things, I mean, these things are, especially this little tad bit is happening so fast. This is your first 5 answer and response interactions, which could be a minute and a half to 2 minutes of conversation. Yeah. And you should be able to pick up on these things pretty quickly and then just know what to say, how to communicate, how to deliver, how to set it up. And when you do need to raise the expectation a little bit, lower the expectation, meet the person, all those things. That's just part of being really exceptional at serving something that people are going to drink and doing it well and in a way that, reflects what's good, but also makes them happy. At the end of the day, they can go to work or go to wherever they're going absolutely pleased.
Dude, customer satisfaction, bing, 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 5 stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Please use that tidbit and make sure you add bing, 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 5 stars after my hand.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm saying use that tidbit and throw it on.
If I walk into a cafe, and especially when I'm getting a 1-in-1 or a cap or a cortado, I want a milk-based drink, and also want a tasty single origin coffee. I literally appreciate the fact when a barista is hey, that coffee just not going to taste good in milk, or you should get a cap instead of a cortado because it's just not going to, or hey, your cortado is going to taste fine with this, or hey, you should just have this as a straight shot. That just recommendation, because at the end of the day, they should know the coffee way better than I do. Right. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. And so for them to just give me even if I'm still going to not listen to their advice, I at least know what I'm getting myself into.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes my experience that much better if somebody behind bar gets it and can offer just a few quick words of direction. Yeah. That's it. So
totally. Yeah, I totally agree. And to all the baristas out there who take these criticisms way too seriously, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Don't take yourself that seriously. Chill out for a minute. It's fine. Or better yet, if you listen to our Level Up series, take that opportunity to level up, to be curious.
100%.
Do it. If you're noticing a pattern that someone is saying the same thing over something when you're on bar, take that as an opportunity to grow. But don't take it personally. Same thing. If you're dealing with stuff online as a roaster and you're getting this feedback online in your DMs, maybe in your what's it called?
Mm-hmm.
The contact sheet on your website, like, and you're getting the same feedback. And I think sometimes people, maybe this isn't true. I was going to say, like, I think sometimes people are slightly nicer if they're taking the moment to go on your website, fill out the contact form, and then drop you some feedback. It's most likely a little more, constructive than just bashing. It's sometimes. I don't know. Maybe I have like this optimism that if someone is taking, like, I have a hard time doing that kind of stuff. And if I do that, like, I really, really care.
Yeah.
And I'm approaching it from a level of intrigue myself when I'm giving the criticism, or if I rarely have to do that. And if that's the case, like, man, just take it and stop being offended.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think, from just a roaster standpoint, like, I'm pretty sure not everybody's gonna like our coffee. That's at the end of the day, I'm like very convinced.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel very comfortable if somebody's like, oh yeah, like, I'd love to order some coffee at some point. Like, I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, hey, you're not gonna like it. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I literally tell them, you should not buy it because you're probably not going to like it.
Yeah.
And if they still buy it, again, I'm like, I set the expectation for you. And if you try and it's like, oh, it's not as bad as he was saying, great. You had a great experience with my coffee.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
It's great. And if you're like, oh no, I don't like it, then it's like, I told you. I mean, and I just know that not because I think our roasting sucks or our coffee suck. I just know that because I'm like, I'm confident in what we're doing, and I'm like, I'm not going to be offended if you think my coffee sucks. On the other hand, like, if somebody from the industry is like, hey, like, your coffee's a little too roasty, or your coffee's a little too, your coffee's underdeveloped, or your coffee is this, like, I literally do not get offended, because I'm like, great, you helped me get better at my craft. Yeah. And also realizing, like, you also have a preference for yourself. Yeah. Like, it's balancing all those things that at the end of the day, like, I'm not taking this as an attack towards me. Yeah. Because I mean, I'm confident I'm fine in our coffees, but there is a chance that you might say something and I might be like, actually, maybe. Maybe I wonder what would happen if we change this. Yeah. Like, and everything is fair game again. Yeah. So. Yeah,
and I'm also thinking everything you're talking about is basically around the idea of trust. Yeah. If you tell that person, oh, you're not gonna like Mirror's coffee, you already have a level of trust built where you can say that, but two, you already know that person's preference. Mm-hmm. And you can guide them in the same way that if someone gives you feedback and you're not offended by it, it's because you already have a connection developed there where you can be like, you normally like these coffees that are rested for, 9 months. We know those coffees. You're probably going to think that's why you're giving this feedback. Yeah. Like you're putting everything in context, and a lot of that context is built based on trust, based on reputation, based on whatever. And it's different when, Lance Hedrick gives you feedback, or a coffee reviewer that we're like, yeah, we know the coffees you like, homie. Like, you're a good dude, but we know that you only like coffees like this. Like, you prefer coffees like this. It's a different story, right? Yeah. So, and there's a lot, context matters, people matter. So therefore, criticism can be received different ways depending on what context is brought into and from who it comes from.
That's it. I have no final thoughts. I was going to say something, but I'm like, I think everything has been said. So remember, as we always say, reflect what's good.